Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Richard Metal Fan Interviews. This is episode number 37, and today's guest we're talking to none other than Donald Tardy. He's the drummer for one of the legends in death metal, Obituary. We're going to be talking about him getting into metal, pretty much drumming influences, the history of the band, new music, and much, much more. So without further ado, let's go talk to Donald. So what's up, guys? I am here with the one and only Donald Tardy from Obituary. Donald, how are you doing today?
I'm doing good, man. How are you?
Doing really well. It's great to be able to talk with you. So basically this format is I'm just going to talk about like your journey from music from where you started to now, but let's just dive right back in the very beginning. What were the
Cool.
first bands that got you into metal and what made you want to start playing drums?
Well, that's a two-part question because when I was growing up in the 70s, I wasn't around metal. So what got me into drums was the music that was around me, which my oldest brother, who's about 6 or 7 years older than me, had a vinyl collection, and that was like Leonard Skinner, Molly Hatchet, Queen, Ted Nugent, Southern rock, and that's really what turned me on to music at a really young age. Like by 7 years old, I was already a drummer, like already figuring it out, and that was in the 70s. So that's really what got me interested in playing drums. And then, of course, when I became a teenager and stuff, then of course, like the typical, like all of us, Metallica, Venom, uh, you know, Slayer, everything that made me want to become a metal drummer is pretty typical for anyone my age, that all of us started experiencing metal. Black Sabbath, AC/DC, that's some of the stuff that, before metal started getting extreme, all of us went through that. And then, of course, everybody that knows Obituary, it's also the bands that were right there in the Tampa and the Brandon area, which was Nasty Savage and Sabotage. They were the ones that really showed me the light as a young drummer, what I really wanted to do, which was heavy metal and double bass drumming and, just heavier than the stuff I was listening to. And so that's really how it began.
All right. Were you in any bands pre-Obituary or was Obituary your first band with you and your brother?
Yeah, the Obituary was the first thing I ever attempted because we started at such a young age. I mean, I was 13 years old. It was 1983 that me and Trevor started. He saw that I was a drummer. Again, I was super young when I was starting to learn how to play drums. So I had a little snare drum, and I was like sitting in my backyard of my parents' house as just a kid. And me and Trevor were friends, and he realized how much I was into it. So he begged his parents for a couple Christmases in a row to get him a guitar. So it was really the first and only thing he and I both attempted, which was Obituary. And somehow here we are 35 years later, and it's still my first band.
Awesome. And I believe you originally were called Executioner at the time.
Yeah, we were for the first few years of our very young career. But the minute we had an album and we're going to be on a record label, there was already a couple other bands in America called Executioner. So the label said, we got to change our name. So my brother came up with Obituary, and it stuck. And there you go.
Awesome. So I believe you were signed with Roadrunner, your first label. How did they find you guys?
They found us through Boravor, um, because there was a Raging Death compilation that he put out, and Obituary and Deicide, who was called, I think, Amon then,
I think
and
it's Amon.
Sadis. Yeah. And Sadis was on that same compilation. I think Atheist, maybe. So it was a compilation that we had 2 songs on it. And I believe uh, through that, I think Roadrunner found us.
Awesome. And then 1989, you dropped your debut album, Slowly We Rot. It's a really great debut album. Like, did you guys knew you were onto something when making this album?
I don't think we knew anything. We were young, man. We wrote that thing in 1986 and kind of worked on it a little bit. And by 87, 88, we were in the studio and releasing it. So we were just teenagers. We didn't know what the hell we were doing. Um, super excited that we were calling ourselves a band and that we actually were getting ready to hold an album, you know. But other than that, we didn't really know what was going to happen, or, you know, what was happening.
Wait, what do you all remember, like the first tour you did on Slowly We Rot, like the very first tour that y'all did?
Yeah, you know, besides doing local shows, you know, opening up for Nasty Savage, or you know, just playing our own local town. The first one was Sacred Reich invited us out on a United States tour,
Oh,
and
wow.
it was Sacred Reich, Obituary, and Forced Entry.
Oh, what a lineup.
1989, I think, or 1990.
Yeah.
And that was pretty awesome. And did it in a van, 6 weeks in a van. The first show, you know, we're from Tampa, Florida. The first show was in San Francisco. So here we are,
Oh,
just
wow.
kids, had to sit in a van with your ass numb from 3 days. It took 3 days to make it there, to have to get, you know, pry yourself out of a van to go, you know, play your first show ever. So that was a challenge. It was fun.
Yeah, and then moving on to 1990, we got Cause of Death. Really quick turnaround from Slowly We Rot. Was there like pressure to follow up Slowly We Rot?
There was not any pressure. I mean, we were so excited, so driven that it was easy. It was easy to write it. Slowly We Rot had been written for quite a few years before we actually got signed and were able to get into the studio. So it's not like we had to turn around in 12 months and write another album. Slowly was already a few years old in our pockets.
Oh,
we
wow.
had already
I never knew that.
We already began like making riffs and stuff, and so Cause of Death actually came out pretty natural and pretty quick and pretty easy for us to write.
Right, were some of these songs like leftovers from when you around the time you wrote Slowly We Rot?
Nah, it was all, you know, it was Slowly We Rot. Everything we put into it. In fact, Slowly We Rot was really only, at first, it was only an 8-song album. When we got signed, Roadrunner wanted to make it a longer full-length album, so we actually wrote 4 more songs and went in and recorded them. So the last 4 songs on Slowly We Rot were recorded at the same studio but at a different time. So those people that study music, and if you listen to it, we kept them, the last 4 songs, because it is a little bit different of a recording. I mean, we did our best, and the engineers at Morrisound did their best to try and make it sound the same with the equipment that we used and the settings that we had. But you can hear a difference, and that's why we had to keep them together at the end of the album, because it was a little bit different sounding. So that's pretty cool history. For a lot of people don't know that. But to answer your question, yeah, Cause of Death, those are all brand new riffs and brand new ideas that we knew we were going to be ready to write another album, and we just went for it, you know.
All right. And then moving on to 1992, we get to The Incomplete. Really good album. Like, what was it like going from Cause of Death to this?
I think The Incomplete, we were in full stride. I think we were learning who we are, and we're comfortable in our skin as a band. Our writing abilities were better, I think, individually as musicians, obvious after touring now and playing a bunch of shows and getting that experience. Me as a drummer, getting in shape, just learning how to play drums well. The Incomplete was like, you know, we were in full stride then, and it shows. That's a well-written album, powerful songs, and yeah, it was fun. It was fun because we were hyped up, we were eager, we were hungry, we were a band that we knew we were a band now, you know.
Awesome. And this album is actually now 30 years old this year, which is crazy.
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah, I'm sorry to make you feel old. But do you have like a different perspective about this album now as opposed to 30 years ago?
I think I have maybe a better appreciation for it. You know, I can look back now after playing in the same band for 3 decades, but also playing drums for 40 years now, that I was young on those first 3 albums, and The Incomplete, my drumming on there was, I think I did a pretty good job for a young buck. And any musician knows, especially when you're young, how nerve-wracking being in a studio is when your drums are set up and you got 5 different people looking in the window waiting for you to record, and you see that little red record light pop on, and you realize you have to, you know, everyone's counting on you, and the timer's ticking for how many hours you're there. So under the pressure and under that kind of nerves that I always feel as a drummer when I know it's important, I can just reflect and just realize that, we did a pretty damn good job for young dudes.
All right. And one question I'm always curious about the Incomplete, being as it's now 30 years old, and I wanted to ask, and I'm pretty sure I know the answer, but I'll ask anyway. Is there a possibility we can get a celebration of the Incomplete somehow?
Well, we already did the live stream and we played the album in its entirety back a few months ago when we were in the pandemic.
Yeah, and it was a great live stream. I saw it myself.
Awesome. Yeah. So that was a huge celebration. Unfortunately, obviously, we wish the entire world could have tuned in because that was fun. It was the first time we ever even considered doing that, which you can imagine some of those songs we tucked away for 25 years and hadn't practiced them. So we had to relearn all the songs and not just kind of learn them. You're about to live stream. So to not make a fool of yourself, we had to practice those songs and get them back down pat like we had them back in the day. So that was a huge celebration for ourselves. It would have been nice if 50, 60,000 people around the world knew it was going to happen because it was killer. I think we put everything we had into it when it came to the production and the sound and just, it's just our studio that we did it from. But, it was 7 camera angles, full production with the Pro Tools rig and stuff. And we played that album in its entirety. So that was super fun. And so hopefully maybe on the road, we will dab into that a little bit. Maybe we will do some of the festivals that we do or one of these tours that we do. We commit to playing the Incomplete in its entirety. But that was our hoorah with the Incomplete when we did that live stream and we did it in full.
Okay, that's great. So moving on, we got World Demise. Pretty good album. Tell me about this.
That's one that is very dear to my heart. It's the first time that we were now a full-time touring band. We pretty much etched our names into heavy metal stone by now, and World Demise was cool because we were a busy touring band. We just toured our asses off on the Incomplete. So now now if there was any pressure, now it's the 4th album, and you got to go in and you got to do something killer. And our live engineer at the time was a British guy named Dave Nichols, who everybody called Big Shirt. He was a legend. He was our live sound engineer. We invited him to come to Florida to Morrisound Recordings, and which is a legendary studio, which he was super stoked.
Yeah, I've heard a lot of great places about that studio.
Yeah, man, Morrisound's been around forever, and anyone who is anybody in Florida has been there and recorded there. So Big Shirt was so stoked to be able to come and join forces with Scott Burns, our main engineer at Morrisound, and help us do that album. It's also an album that, people that know it, there's those opinions. It's so many people's favorite album, and then so many other people's kind of like what your reaction. It's people would think it's a pretty good album, and it's an opinion. You know what I mean? It's someone's opinion. Me personally, besides the new album, actually the new one's done, but that one's not out yet. Besides
which we'll talk about in a sec.
Yeah, besides the self-titled album, World Demise is my favorite Obituary album. I love the songwriting. Wow. I love the production. I think it's different sounding, and the songs are heavy, man. That album is it's one where a lot of my friends say, I tucked it away for a while and I kind of forgot about it, and all of a sudden I found it and I put it on. I can't believe some of these songs, how heavy they are.
Yeah, it's interesting.
Kind of it's kind of the way I feel. It's just one of those, a bit. It's a good thing when there's not only one album that your fans and your friends all say is the only good album. So that's a good thing, knowing that we have all, my opinion, our albums are they're pretty quality. They're pretty they hold their own, and Lord knows now we're on album number 12. So
wow.
It's been some time. We've been writing for a long time. We have 100 and something songs now, so we've been there, done that kind of thing.
Yeah, that's cool you said something about World Demise, because literally I don't think anybody talks about that album.
Yeah, it's good though. Hey, you know what? it's history, and it's always there for the young people that might be watching this podcast and be like, you know what? I think I remember maybe "Don't Care" that song, but I've never really listened to the album. Hopefully, they go and they find it because, like I said, for me, if an alien came down and said, "What is heavy metal and what is Obituary?" and play me an album, I'd be proud to throw on a World Demise album and let them listen to it because it depicts what Obituary is. We're heavy. John's voice is sick on that record, and there's some good songwriting on that album.
Yeah, yeah, totally. Like, and kind of like backtracking a little bit in between Incomplete and World Demise, you had a brief band called Meat Hook, and you released a little album called Embedded. Tell me about that. I don't think nobody's really talked about this ever.
Yeah, this was Mitch Harris from Napalm Death.
Oh,
It
wow.
was his baby. It was his creation. It's called Meat Hook Seed. And Mitch had some songs, and he asked me if I wanted to be a part of it. And I was totally stoked because I love his guitar style, but more importantly, we toured together as young bucks, and we remained super good friends. And even though that was only 1994, we had already known each other for a few years, and it was super fun to do. And it was a project. I've never done a project before. And if there was any time I'd want to do a project, it would have been with Mitch because he's so creative. So he came to Florida to my house. We wrote 4 more songs for the album. And then we all went to New York City to record an album, which I've never been out of Tampa to record an album before. So that was super fun for me as well. And so Meat Hook Seed, the album's called Embedded, and we didn't have any idea what it was going to come out like. And the songs were really cool and different. And it ended up being an iconic album. Like nowadays, still, it's been 30 years, and people still not just show up with the CD for me to sign it, but when they do, they're like, "This album was sick, man." And I
Nice.
agree. I think Mitch is incredible. Still one of my best friends, and that was super fun for me. Just personally, that was fun for me to do a project outside of my band that that is my brother. It was really fun to do.
All right. And then moving on to 1997, we get Back from the Dead. And this was the last Obituary album for a while. Wow. Did you all knew you kind of like were kind of feeling like tensions when making this album?
Nah, not at all. There was no tensions. That was a fun album. That was an album that we actually went down. We left Tampa's More Sound Studios and we went down to a legendary studio in Miami, Criteria Studios, where there's so many gold records and platinum records on the walls. You can't even believe how many amazing artists have recorded there. So that was awesome to go down there and record, and we recorded it with a different engineer finally. And so the sound of it is killer and it's different. Songwriting is awesome on that record as well. And it is what it is. We toured with it, and then the life as being life on the road, life in the music world, in the music industry, just kind of caught up to us as human beings. And it's not like we had any kind of blowout. It's not like the band had any kind of fight. It's not like we decided, hey, we're going to take a break for a year or 2 or 3. We just somehow, when we made it home from the last tour of Back from the Dead, everybody just kind of went and did their thing, stayed away for a little bit. People started having families, children were being born, people were having their own lives, people wanted to take a break from the record label, living out of backpacks, music industry shit. We took a break. We didn't break up. We didn't fight. We didn't talk about breaking up. We just literally just took a hiatus, and life goes by very quickly. So 6 or 7 years went by, and I don't do anything well except play drums. So I still just practiced, for a few years, and then a dude named Andrew WK contacted me and asked me if I wanted to be a part of something he was doing. So I was a part of Andrew's first 2 albums, which I had a blast, and I put Andrew's band together for him, the band members in the band.
That is awesome. I never knew this.
Help him create that band. And then I toured with him for 5 years, and
just partied hard.
I watched it go from a concept to literally 1,000 miles an hour, gold record, playing Ozfest. I performed on Saturday Night Live with Andrew. I performed on Conan O'Brien. I played, all these late night shows. And it's funny, I went from Obituary and taking a hiatus to Andrew from 0 to 1,000 miles an hour. Next thing you know, we're on Learjets and Ozfests and Saturday Night Live. We actually opened for Aerosmith in America for 11
Ooh,
shows.
that is
It was
amazing.
incredible. It was awesome. So yeah, so when the band kind of went home and wanted to get away from the scene, I dove right into it and went and was doing some of the biggest shows I've ever even considered doing, you know, playing in arenas, you know, opening for Aerosmith and doing the Ozfests and shit like that. It was really fun. Saturday Night Live was crazy because you can imagine, you know, I know Saturday Night Live, I know it's live, and the mistakes are right there, and it's not like you're playing in front of 1,000 people in a club that night, because the host was The Rock on
Nice.
Saturday Night Live, and the season before that, The Rock, his episode was the highest rated one from the season before. So we knew when he came back, they had an estimate. They knew how many people were watching that night. And they said, it was funny that we got that knock on the door right before we had to get on stage. It was like, hey guys, just letting you know 5 minutes before you guys get to get on stage. And by the way, 11 million people are watching. And I'm like, oh yeah, thanks, dude. Did you really need to say that right before my fucking performance? So that was fun. So yeah, so that was my hiatus. I still went and did music and toured the world with Andrew. We did 29 countries, and I did hundreds of shows with him in a 4.5-year period. So that was really fun.
Awesome. And then 2003, Obituary reunited. What made you all want to come back?
Andrew actually invited us. I was on Ozfest with Andrew, and we were playing in Florida. And again, we were never not friends. Obituary we still were hanging out, watching sports together, you know, watching NASCAR, football, partying. But we just took a break from it. And it was Andrew on the Ozfest, where even though Andrew's set we only played for 30 minutes. If anyone's been to an Ozfest, it's bam, 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 band after band. And even though we only had a 30-minute set, he said, do you think you guys would want to come out and do like 2 Obituary songs? And we did. And that literally sparked the flame back into how much my brother and Trevor realized how fun it is to be touring. And we can thank Andrew for being such a fan of Obituary that he invited us to do two songs on his stage with him. He played guitar as well. He learned the 2 songs as well. That was pretty fun. And then it sparked it, and then you know, the rest was history. Obituary got back together. We realized we were going to do one more album because we were obligated to do, which you're going to ask next, is Frozen in Time. And we owed Roadrunner, that record label, still one more album. We were still obligated for one more record. So
Yeah.
they
were just like waiting.
Yeah, they were waiting for one more, and then
Yeah.
they finally let the little birdie go. They wouldn't let us go without getting one more album, sucking the last away, juices out of our bodies. But yeah.
Yeah, and that's a great album. Like Redneck Stomp, what a hell of an opener. And I think the last couple times I've seen you have always opened it up, and it's a hell of a way to start on an album. That dun, 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 dun.
Yeah.
Just a catchy thing.
And it still is. It's still a great opening song for us live, because it's just a groovy song. The crowd wonders where my brother is because it's just an instrumental, and it was just fun. It's a cool song. We actually, like you said, we started the album with that, and you know, funny story is we knew, because when my brother heard, you know, when he was writing the lyrics and writing for this album, when it got to Redneck Stomp, he just kind of said, man, I don't think this song needs lyrics. I don't think we need to do anything. It should just be a groove. And we were like, cool, let's go for it. But then as musicians, you know, our creativity, we know what we want. We are very driven. We're very focused on what we think would be cool for concepts of records. And when we told the record label that the album's going to start with an instrumental, they were like, you can't do that. That's the dumbest move you can make. And I was the complete opposite. I was like, we've been gone for 7 years. The main thing that people think of when they hear the word Obituary is John Tardy's vocals. And can you imagine that we're going to give them a groove for 4 minutes of just a killer fucking hook with no vocals, and they're going to be waiting for that second song. And sure enough, you know, record label's like, it's a terrible idea, and it ended up being a great idea. It was awesome. I didn't regret 1 second of it. And still, if you listen to that record, it just primes you up, man. It makes you just want to crack a beer and be ready for that next song, you know?
Yeah, and it's still a great comeback album. Did you feel like nervous being after a long gap between Back from the Dead and Frozen in Time to like follow it up?
Nah, you know what it was, man? Because again, we were a band for what, 20 something years before we took a little break. So that 6 years being away from each other was nothing but refreshing. It basically plugged the battery in, let it recharge. It refreshed our mind. It gave us a better attitude, knowing we're going to be free from our contracts from the label. We're going to now have our own say in our business and control our destiny. And so that was probably the easiest album to write, because we ain't been around each other in a while. We probably wrote 3 songs the first day, you know.
All right. Moving on, we get to Executioner's Return. It's still a good album. Another, in my opinion, kind of similar to what we were talking about with World Demise. I don't think really anybody talks about this album at all.
Yeah, that's one where it's incredible. Like it's crazy that a lot of people, including like close friends, didn't even realize that that we had an album. And again, that goes back to now we're on another record label, and they did a horrible job of letting the world know there's an album out.
Oh, damn.
And
it was Candlelight at the time, wasn't it?
Candlelight. Yeah, they obviously did not realize how important it would be, and what a band they got a hold of with getting Obituary to do an album on their record label. Not saying we're the biggest band in the world, but they, you know, we are a big death metal band that fans are waiting for it, and to have a fan. But anyway, amazing album. Ralph Sentala now was in the band, one of my close friends. We lost Ralph a few years ago.
Rest in peace.
Man, one of the sickest guitar players I have ever been able to, because I engineered the records. You know, we now had our own studio by the time we started doing these, and my brother and myself are the engineers on these albums. So I was able to sit down and after we recorded the music, to sit down with Ralph and to watch that dude play some of those solos right off the cuff, just no thinking about it, just absolutely shredding. I've never witnessed something like that. The talent that was in that guy's fingers was so awesome. Missed the dude so much. And you know, he did that album with us, and we had an absolute blast. And then as you're probably going to bring up, The Darkest Day is
actually again, before that you did the Left to Die EP.
And
was that sort of like something to lead up to Darkest Day?
Yeah, it was. And that's when we had a lot of music. We thought it would be cool to do an EP, just whatever. Bands tried different things. Record labels appreciate an EP. It keeps people talking about you. It leads up to the next album, and it gets fans excited about what's coming next. And Darkest Day was next, and Ralph was still in the band at the time. So again, super awesome album. There's another one where people are like, Darkest what? And it's like, man, I tucked it away for many years just because I just don't listen to my albums. I don't listen to Obituary music when I'm away from touring. Not that much.
Yeah, you don't want to listen to yourself.
For quite a few. Yeah, it went away for so many years that I didn't. And I think my brother, when we were just hanging out in the studio, he happened to put it on in the studio when we were waiting around for everyone to show up. Oh my God, is that album heavy, man? That's the first thing I thought. I'm like, God, this album's heavy, man. And we had a blast, man. And that was all with Ralph. And knew Ralph for a long time, and super proud that he was in my band for as long as he was, and that we actually got to tour the world together, and that I actually got to witness his genius guitar solo skills in person. Yeah. So very proud of those.
And on this EP, you did like a re-recording of Slowly We Rot. What made y'all decide to like re-record an old song?
I don't even know why we did it. Probably because again, where we practice is our studio now. It's my brother's house. We've been there for 20 years. we finally bought that Pro Tools rig right when Ralph was in the band. So the last 5 albums. So what slowly probably was, I think we were probably testing out the Pro Tools, and we recorded slowly. And so we had it tucked away. We did a recording of it. We mixed it. And then we realized, man, we have a pretty cool rendition of Slowly. Let's put it on the EP. Why not? It's just kind of different. Slowly. So that song is so old, so many years ago, that let's just do a new version of it. And that's how that thing got thrown on there.
Cool. And you also did like another Celtic Frost song, because I know you covered Circle the Tyrants. You also covered Dethroned Emperor.
Yeah.
How'd you all decide to come up with cover that song in particular?
That's just such a cool song. We used to play that song, as Executioner back in the day before we even toured. Again, goes back to who influenced Obituary. Celtic Frost was the main influence when we started figuring out what style we wanted, what we wanted to sound like. And when we were really young, before we had a lot of Obituary songs, we were playing Slayer covers and Metallica and Venom, and a lot of it was Celtic Frost. We played Circle of the Tyrants, and we played Dethroned Emperor. So same thing. We were like, man, we used to play that song and it was killer. Let's record it. And so we did.
Okay. And then 2009 we have The Darkest Day, and that's like the only CD I don't have. I'm sorry, I need to get that. But tell me about that whole one. I believe it was the last one under Candlelight, right?
Yeah, and it is. Yeah, and again, Ralph was still in the band. We had a blast writing that album, because it's our studio. There's no more having to travel to a studio, get there at a certain time, knowing that $100 an hour is ticking by at a studio's cost, and I can record at 10 in the morning at my place, or I can record at 10 at night. And if I don't feel like recording that day or going to the studio to write, we don't have to worry about it. So it really took a lot of pressure off, and it allowed us to write freely. And so it was just fun. It was awesome recording albums at our place with the new Pro Tools rig. And that was a whole new genre for us, is learning to record with Pro Tools, learn how to edit, learn how to record. And we did. And then again, Darkest Day, for a lot of people that don't have that album, it's heavy as donkey balls, man. It's just, it is heavy. And again, Ralph's solos are ridiculous on that record.
Yeah, he was a great good.
Yeah, it's just, again, super cool album, man.
All right. So then moving on, you got signed to Relapse, and then you put out Inked in Blood. What it's kind of a different compared to like some of your other stuff. Tell me about this one.
Well, that one, I mean, the songwriting process was the same, like it's always been. The style of songs, we didn't try and reinvent the wheel. Again, it goes back to us owning our own studio. I think we probably had more fun writing that album, because now at this point, Terry Butler, who's been lifelong friend. I've known him since I was in high school.
Yeah, played with Death and 6 Feet Under.
Yeah, he should have been in this band 30 years ago, but he was in Death. Yeah. We would have stolen, but we were nice guys. Yeah. And then Ken Andrews, my boy. He entered the picture, and he's just super cool dude, always in a good mood, absolute shredding guitar player. And so to have those guys there with us, and we were a family now. We were the final piece to the puzzle was there. Now we know we're back to a super polished, well-oiled engine, and we went for it. And Inked in Blood shows that. Love that album. The songs are awesome. I think the main thing I'm the most proud of, and it might not be the greatest produced album in the world when it comes to the sound, but I could not be more proud that is the one album that we can say we did it 100%. My brother and myself, we engineered it. We did all the editing and the cutting up of the guitar little squeaks and booms and typical editing of albums. We mixed it and we sent it off to master without any outside help. So that's I don't know how many bands can say that they really did that, because a lot of bands are tracking their songs now, and we do the same thing. Normally we track the songs in our studio, but then we hand it off Like lately, we've been handing it off to my boy Joe Sincata, who's my live engineer, but he's also up in New York at Full Force Studios, and he's a genius when it comes to fucking production and just live and albums. But Inked in Blood, we did it 100% on our own. There was not any outside influence. No one came in and helped us mix it, edit it. No sound replacements, no sampling, none of that crap. It was just the band going for it and the band mixing it ourselves and just saying, those are my kick drums. They're not sound replaced. That's my snare drum. There is no trigger. That is what the drum set sounds like in a room. And that's what I'm most proud of with that record, which might not mean anything to fans listening to it. But when they go, this album sounds a little bit different and weird, and maybe it's because the band, we did it for the first time. We went for it. We tried our best, and we did it 100% on our own without an engineer.
All right. And then lastly, we got the self-titled album from 2017. Like normally, like a self-titled album is like the band's would be for like the band's debut album. But I feel like a self-titled like later in career calls mean like a new start, a new fresh. Like for you, what was the reason behind it being self-titled?
You know, I would lie if I said, oh, there was a big, huge thought and a thought process, and this was the one, and it's so epic that we don't really need a name to. It was pretty much my brother going, you know what? Every band gets that card, that hand, and you get to name one album just self-titled, Obituary, and the songs were so killer. It was just going to be a logo album, which it was. That logo is, you can stare at it for hours. It's just so many cool little carvings and faces that Andreas Marshall did for us, and we just, it was a simple decision. Let's just call it Obituary. No big deal. And that's the end of it. That's the end of the story.
And being as it's now like 5 years old, can we maybe expecting some new Obituary music coming soon?
Well, I can proudly tell you that the new album is finished. But I can also tell you that until this pandemic opens up Europe, we will not release this album until we are invited back to Europe, because the only thing that albums are good for now, and some people won't agree with this, especially fans, is that it's there to get people talking about the band. So when we get ready to go tour, we can make a living, because nobody's, and I don't mean nobody as in 0%, but the percentage of people actually walking to a Best Buy or walking to a store and physically buying one of my albums compared to 18 years ago, as you can imagine, is nil. So we have to wait for the prime opportunity to release this thing, so everybody wants to go and get it. And the prime opportunity is when Europe is open, when America's open. We can release it, we can be in Europe, and we can go bust our asses and hope that people go and buy the new album, because everyone's listening to it, but we're all listening to it on Spotify and on these streaming sites. And that doesn't do musicians like myself, it doesn't do us any good, because we don't get royalties from those companies. So so to answer your question, the new album is done, and it is fucking awesome.
Hell yeah.
But you guys you're going to have patience. We're going to wait until Europe opens up.
Yeah, we consider this just like picking up where you left off after self-titled, or do you consider it almost kind of like a new start for the band in a way?
It is Obituary, absolutely 100% meat and potatoes, but with Ken's influence and him able to write a few songs with me on this one, he brings a much more old school thrash metal feel. So it's fresh, it's killer, it's exciting on some of those songs, but then also the meat and potatoes, there are some songs that are so heavy on this record, man. I'm so proud of it. I can't wait for people to hear it. And the production, we recorded it at our studio, and then we sent it off to Joe Sincata, my boy, who's done the last 4 albums with us. He did a amazing job. The sound of this record is fantastic. Can't wait for everybody to hear it, man. We're working on the album cover right now, and we are now just waiting for the target date that we're going to release it. But again, reality is we haven't been to Europe in 4 years, and they're deserving of it as well. So we're gonna wait so all of us around the whole world can celebrate this album with us properly, where we can go do a world tour and promote it.
Right. And talking about your drumming, because there's always the saying with bands is like if your drummer sucks, your band sucks. But what I wanted to ask is, as a drummer, do you need to like hear what you usually have like a drum pattern written beforehand and the band can write over that, or do you need to hear what the guitars are doing in order to come
Yeah,
up with a
no, I
drum
mean,
pattern?
Obituary has always been a weird, very basic, but a very strange way of writing compared to, I think, most bands. I think most bands, there's like one dude that maybe sits in his room and thinks of like it's going to be a verse and then a bridge and then back to the second verse and then a chorus and then a breakdown thing. And of course, it's got to go to a third verse. And of course, you got to end it with a chorus. And then he brings that to the band and it's already almost written out. Me and Trevor have always just literally gotten to the room wherever we're jamming, crack a cold beer, and we just go for it and we see what happens. And usually shit happens and cool rhythms come up. And then once you got a rhythm, it's the whole giving me an inch, I'll take it a mile. If Trevor can give me just a little bit, my creativity and just usually my brain, I can really think immediately what I'm going to do on drums. And that's just a given. I've been playing drums for nearly my whole life, but it's also just not just drumming, but just the creative shit, like giving ideas to all the other band members with riffs, or maybe what if we did the cool little pause thing here, or try something here. So it's not just drumming for me. It's molding whatever we have with guitar riffs and drum beats and molding it into the best songs we can. So, drumming's second nature to me because I've been doing it since I was 7, but writing good songs takes a little bit of work. So you take that basic song and you sit on it and you put it away that day and you listen to it then the next day and you put it away and you listen to it the next day. Next thing you know, you're like, man, this would be better if we did it this way. Maybe we only have to do this riff half the time on that second part. So that's the process. I'm not just a drummer. I'm a songwriter. So, it's the whole creative process that makes me excited and keeps me going.
All right. And playing live, is there like a similar energy as to recording, or they're almost kind of like two separate entities?
You should have the same logic playing. For me, I'm speaking only for myself. You should have that same theory and that same logic playing live as you do, or playing in the studio as you do live. In the studio, 90% of the time, nerves get to the musician. And you can ask 100 musicians, and probably 99 of them will answer what I'm going to tell you, which is, yeah, I wish I had one more take at it, man. I could have done that better. It's like when I'm in the studio all by myself and I'm just practicing that song and I know it's not being recorded, I'm like Neil Peart. And then you hit record and then your nerves take over. You're holding the sticks a little too hard. You're playing a little bit too loud. You're just pushing too hard, maybe playing a little too, you're thinking too much. And relaxing is the best way for dudes to get the best out of themselves. And for me, I've been performing live so long. We left on tour. I was 19 years old when we left on our first tour. I just turned 52 in last Saturday. I've been on stage
Happy
for a long
birthday.
time. So thank you, man. So I've been on stage and I'm so relaxed on stage live. In the studio, if I could play like that, I would be a much better album drummer. But nerves, even now after 12 albums, it still catches up to me a little bit. So, and I know that with a lot of my friends, a lot of people say the same thing, but I wish I played in the studio like I do live.
All right.
I'll put it that way.
And I've noticed, like, I've seen Obituary 8 times. I've seen every Atlanta show you've all done since 2016. Like, I know, like, but I also played in front of like a different variety of bands. Like, I know you played with Cannibal Corpse, which is a straight up death metal. Then you played with Hatebreed, which is like more hardcore. And then the current tour that I saw you on last Saturday with Municipal Waste is more thrashy.
Yeah.
But do you ever notice like a different like crowd reaction depending on the tours that you're on?
Well, yeah, and of course, and most of the time, what tour you're going to be on. For instance, like you just said, Cannibal Corpse fans, we will literally pick a set list that's going to be catered to who's going to be in the room that night as fans watching. So you're going to go hard at Cannibal Corpse fans. You're going to give them the Obituary mid-tempo groovy ones a little bit, but you're going to try and shred that night. Same with Hatebreed tour. We're gonna pick the threatening skies and the doodah beats, to get those Hatebreed fans to realize that if they don't know Obituary, man, these dudes got it going on. But for instance, the last tour that we just did in America was with Black Label Society, And Zach
Yeah,
Wild
was at
fans
that
are
show.
my age. Yeah, and they're my age. These are people that like Ozzy, and they don't even really maybe know what Obituary is. They understand that there's a style of music called death metal, but they probably think they don't like it if they've never heard it. So our set list that we picked there, we wanted to make sure that we're playing the meat and potatoes, those good groovy killer ones that they don't even know if they're going to like it before we start because it's called death metal. But 4 songs into it, you see them doing this. By the end of the show, they got their hands in there. They're like, yeah. And we were gaining fans. And these are 50-year-old people. You know, these are people that are Zach Wild fans. They've been around for a long time. They're, very basically my age. And so we picked the set list to kind of cater to people that so we don't scare them away. Instead, we were gaining fans every night at the merch booth. My merch person said every night we had people coming up. I had no idea who these dudes were. I heard of the band before, had no idea. And he goes, next time they're in town, I'm coming. I'm a new fan, which that's the
Awesome.
biggest compliment you can get, man.
Okay, so anyway, I
Yeah,
got 2 more questions for you. You
right
ready
on.
for the hard question? And kind of like going back to songwriting.
Yeah.
How do you know when a song is done?
It's a good question. Some songs, they're done immediately, and they're easy to write. Like we've written songs. We've written a 5-minute song in 10 minutes because it flew. It was so easy to write. Like it writ itself. It's like it's got to go from that to that cool little thing back to a fucking thing, and then if we just listen to it, you can tell the ending's just gonna let's just end it like that, and then we're like done. Some songs, man, you sit on it, you can tuck it away and come back and listen to it a week later and be like, no, this thing needs something here. And then even when you go, it's done, and we'll just fade it out maybe, and you're like, again, you come back a day later or a week later and you listen to it and you're like, I ain't done yet. It just doesn't feel done yet, and you just work on it until you know it's done. But if that's an answer, I don't know if it's an answer, but some
Yeah.
right away, some you just got to work on it to make it there an ending or make it feel like an ending, and some of them don't ever feel completely 100% done, but that's music.
That's great. And the final question I want to ask is coming from Tampa, Florida, which is pretty much the death metal capital of the world. It's like with you guys, Cannibal Corpse, Morbid Angel, Deicide. I just there's like so many different bands from that scene. There's like so did you feel like a scene in Tampa that you fell a part of, or was it for the goal for Obituary to get outside of Florida and your state to play in front of like different audiences?
Oh God, no. Yeah, Florida's my home. I mean, I am Florida. I mean, Obituary. We were the dudes riding around on our bicycles in my neighborhood, like literally, teenager on a bicycle riding for a 30-minute ride, almost getting run over by traffic to go stare in the window watching Nasty Savage practice. And then when we started playing shows and opening for bands and playing shows with Death and Chuck, and Atheist and Deicide, it was a scene, and everybody wants to think it was like competition and cutting each other's brake lines so they can't make the show because you want to be better than them, and it wasn't for us anyway. We were very comfortable who we were, and if anyone has met Obituary, they know we're pretty down to earth dudes, man. We don't take life too serious. We take our music serious, and we know that we kick ass on stage, but we don't take shit too serious, man. We're not afraid to open for anybody, and we're not afraid to play after anybody. And we were even like that at an early age. Meaning, if we were going to play with Morbid Angel or Death or Deicide, and somebody was huffing and puffing that they wanted to play after, or they refused to play anything but last, we were like, good, we'll play first. That gives us more time to drink beer when we're finished. So we didn't care. We are Florida people. I've been to 29 different countries to perform, every corner of this planet and every corner of my country, and it's fun to see all them. But I will always come back to Florida, and back to Tampa to live. It's my home, and proud Floridian, and I would never leave. I get to go everywhere for my job, but I will always come back to Florida.
Awesome. So before we go, I just want to thank you so much for this interview. Is there just
Cool.
anything else you would like to promote with Obituary? I know you're currently on the tour with Municipal Waste and Enforce. Is just anything else you'd like to promote in terms of like new tours and everything?
Yeah, I don't know when this is going to come out, If it's literally still while I'm on the road with Municipal, awesome. Hope everyone comes out and sees it. If not, we're going to have another East Coast run coming up for American fans. Just keep, Europe's closed, but Obituary's not. So we're still going to go have fun. We're going to be announcing that pretty soon. So everyone's going to see those dates, and stoked, and hope everybody comes out. And then, again, new album's ready. We just all have to be patient, man. And we actually do have a pretty soon. I can't say anything yet, but literally in the next couple months, we have some really cool news for everybody around the world that needs to hear some Obituary, that's going to be waiting with us for the new album. So I'll keep it at that. And as always, man, 35 years with fans watching me play drums. I thank you very much.
Awesome. So everybody, Donald Tardy from Obituary. We'll see you next time.
Right on. Cheers, everybody.
Cheers.